All right. Well, hi, folks. Welcome to the first ever Ocean Hour podcast. My name is Jeff Gorman. I'm a guitar player, an artist, songwriter. I play in a rock band called Illiterate. I live here in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, and I spend most of the year traveling around in a van playing guitar at extremely loud volumes and headbanging and just sort of going nuts on stage. But aside and in addition to that, I am also an ambassador for 11th Hour Racing, which is how Frankie and I connected. My involvement with 11th Hour actually sort of started about 15 years ago, when I was working in organic agriculture here in the Shenandoah Valley, growing food, running a farm, selling at the farmer's market, milking cows, raising chickens, and basically trying to bike everywhere that I could. That sort of led to this crazy idea to tour my music on bicycle. I spent several summers doing that, which meant biking 300 or 400 miles over the course of a couple weeks and playing concerts along the way. So fast forward to the early 2020s, my bandmate and I have sort of carried this crazy vision of bike advocacy up to Newport, Rhode Island. We host a stage at the Newport Folk Festival called the Bike Stage. And the stage has about 15 artists throughout the weekend. It's one of the most sort of historic, legendary festivals here in the US. The stage is powered by 8 solar panels, as well as 6 bicycles, and fans literally get to sit front row and watch these epic performers play a show, and the fans are the ones that are sitting there biking and creating the electricity for the concert. It's been totally rad. This was our 4th year doing it. So we're sort of just asking the question of what's it going to be like to be a touring artist 10 years from now, 25 years from now, 50 years from now. And we're sort of, generating crazy ideas to think about a more sustainable future. That has kind of led me into my relationship with 11th Hour, which was this year we wanted to do something even wilder, and we biked from Virginia to Rhode Island, which was about 750 miles. My bandmate and I, we played shows along the way, and we had fans join us on certain legs of the tour. So really the goal was to get people out riding their bikes, being hit by sunlight, breathing the air, and just trying to find a way to transition from sort of our constant reliance on the automobile, is sort of the backbone to what we're doing. 11th Hour Racing came in as a partner and helped us bring this to life by capturing video content for it and helping us market and promote and link up with bike communities all throughout the East Coast. So that is sort of how we started to carry this torch as 11th Hour ambassadors. I'm going to stop yapping about me and start a transition here to my new relationship with Francesca Clapcich, who I will refer to as Frankie from here on out. We met 2 weeks ago in New York City for Climate Week. I think we were both probably on 2 or 3 hours of sleep. And so hopefully I'll be a little more coherent today than I was a couple weeks ago. But to give a little context here, Frankie, as she's best known, has had an amazing career in sailing since having been introduced to the sport by her parents when she was a young child, growing up in Trieste, Italy. She's won world and European titles, twice represented Italy at the Olympic Games, as well as being Italian Sailor of the Year and becoming the first Italian to win the ocean race. She recently announced her plans to compete in the 2028 Vendée Globe, which I've been researching like a maniac over the last 2 days, sailing solo and nonstop around the entire planet. For folks that we'll get into this later, but it's about 25,000 miles. It's 90 days at sea, completely by herself, I've got a million questions around that. In the immediate future, she's preparing for the Transat Cafe Lore, which is the longest and most demanding double-handed transatlantic race, which follows a historic coffee route, which I'm excited to chat more about that as well. Let me just finish up and say, in addition to being a complete legend on the ocean, she's also an avid skier and a CrossFit coach. And in both her professional and personal life, Frankie seeks solutions to inspire change and foster a community where diversity is celebrated and equality is the norm. So, Frankie, sorry that I had to just talk for like 5 minutes straight. I appreciate your patience. How are you doing today?
Yeah, no worries. No, I'm doing great, and it's really a pleasure to be able to chat together and get this podcast going. I'm not an expert in podcasting, but I will try to do my best. Really like answering hopefully your questions, and yeah, ready to get this fired up, and hopefully people will really follow our journeys that might look different from the outside, but I think it has a lot of common points and common pieces that we're also able to share with 11-hour racing. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to share more.
Awesome. Yeah, I've spent the last few days just sort of studying you and learning about you're such a holistic it's funny to start and say you're such a holistic sort of visionary, but I really think there's so much to unpack here. I've just got like 15 pages of notes in front of me, so I'll try not to get too lost on that. But I actually thought it would be fun to sort of like ground us in the here and now. There's this massive Vendée Globe race that you just recently announced in the last few months that you're beginning to train for. That's in 2028. That's a few years down the road, but in 2 or 3 weeks from now, you are competing in the Transit Cafe Lore. And I'd like to sort of just start with that race and just kind of hear about what your sort of average day is like right now. I'm kind of riffing off of a really sweet YouTube series that you have called Being Frankie, which kind of shows a day in the life. And I just loved it. And I'd really love to hear about your training in this exact moment. Where are you? What time are you waking up? How much coffee are you drinking in the morning, if any? Are you exercising? Do you have a morning ritual? Can you sort of bring us into what your world is like right now?
Yeah, I mean the Transat Cafe Lore is the first step, I will say, for my own project is the first race that we will race with the colors of 11-hour racing. And for me, it's a really exciting time to get this project going. At the same time, it's just a little step towards the massive goal of the Vendée Globe. I always found the interesting part of all this project is really the journey. It's not really the end goal. I always thought that the end goal is it's really far away. Sometimes it's not possible to control it with such a long road ahead, but it's way easier to take every single step and try to work really hard for each of them and then put them together. And yeah, I mean, definitely my life every day is a mix of, balancing some personal life. I have a really young daughter. She's only 3, and I'm really trying to spend as much time as possible with her. And at the same time, really taking time for myself. And, I have a pretty strict gym plan that goes Monday through Friday, more or less. Trying to keep up with my nutrition. I'm not the best as like, eating schedules, I would say. So I need to really push myself to make sure that I get all the meals done and get them good and good nutrition. So that's definitely one of my biggest challenge. And definitely a good amount of coffee in the morning to get going. Especially with a young kid, sometimes you need it just to survive the morning routine to get her to school. And then, not right now, I'm in Utah where I live, and it's a place that I call home. As you said before, I love the mountains. I love the outdoor. So it's a really amazing place where I can, do a lot of like fitness and preparation at the same time, really be involved in the outdoor environment that I do love. And yeah, in a couple of days, unfortunately, I cannot ride a bike to France. It will take me a little bit too long. So unfortunately, I need to use a way less sustainable resource to get to France. That is an airplane. But then, I mean, once I'm there, it's like, I get to France, and the next commutes for the next month is gonna be on a boat. So I guess it's kind of balancing out the two things. But I have a massive passion for bikes. I have
Ooh.
all kind of bikes, from road bikes, gravel, mountain bike. I love road biking to like easy enduro. So it's definitely, like when I read and heard your story that you really use it as I would say it's also like a great platform to show people how we can really do a big impact, how we commute. And it was quite eye-opening when I moved to the US, how easy it is to just grab the car to do a few miles when you can have, a way less impact using different resources. And I mean, living in Park City, of course, riding bikes is almost the norm, but it's not everywhere. And yeah, it was a really cool thing to learn about you.
Oh wow. Man, I didn't know you have the bike connection as well. That's really so cool. Um, so okay, let's dive just a little bit deeper for 1 second on the again, I'm just nerding out on some of this. What you get to the gym, you're there 5 days a week. Are you doing cardio? I know you're involved in CrossFit. Is it strength training? Run us through that.
Yeah, it's mostly strength training, I would say. I definitely enjoy doing most of the cardio outside the gym. Some days are harder, it might be freezing, you can't get a lot done, but so far, the days are still allowed you to good to go outside and ride bikes. Or in the winter, I do love, cross country skiing or backcountry skiing. That actually is an amazing workout if in outside. So I really try to do the cardio part outside the box. and like the strength and conditioning, of course, I use it at gym. I use a mix between just free weights and some machines. I had ACL surgery a year ago, so of course that path was not super easy in the last 12 months, and now I really feel like, okay, I'm not sure it's 100% normal, but I definitely feel I can do almost everything, and it's a really good feeling about it, especially getting close to like winter season after the transit, and willing, to slowly go back to skis and hopefully ski with my daughter a bit more. So that will be great. Um, but I'm not doing it alone. I have a full staff of like, I have a personal trainer that is really scheduling all these sessions, making sure they make sense for what my goal is. I have a mental coach that is really helping me figure it out, my emotions towards not only the project, but there's always a personal life, and how much we try to separate the two things is we're still human being, and the personal life does affect a lot our work. And I'm really trying to work on myself on that. And I have a nutritionist that is also like a chiropractor, PT, so he's helping really with like an overall look at human resources and how we can really focus on the human being. If I know you're not really into the sailing community, but people are really focused on like the boat, the sails, the ropes, all the details on the boat, and sometimes they don't really think about that there's a human being behind it that has to be on a boat for a certain amount of days, pushing a lot of ropes and a lot of things for so many hours a day. And yes, for sure, sales and the gear makes a massive difference in the performance, but the human being behind it is a massive part of it. And for me, since the beginning, I really wanted to prioritize that and have people around me that can help with that.
Yeah, that man, there's so many things that I'd love to riff on of from what you just said. This is maybe a funny sort of question in the midst of all of that. Um, but would you consider yourself, do you see yourself as an introvert or an extrovert? Is that part of your sort of mental landscape? You'll see where I'm
It,
going with this in a minute.
it's a funny question because people that knows me now will say that I'm really extrovert, and I don't think I am. I think I am a pretty good mix of 50-50 introvert or extrovert. If you met me when I was like, even like 20, like you would be like, okay, this person doesn't even talk with other people, it's like almost antisocial. And a few years later, I definitely feel more confident in my own shoes. I feel confident with the person that I am. I'm really proud of who I am. I think, I'm proud of what I was able to build in the last few years. And definitely that built a lot of confidence. And at the same time, you might like show that you are more extrovert. But,
Yeah.
it's a good, I would say it's a good mix of the two things.
Yeah. That seems important because you're doing both solo sailing, 90, 80, 90 days at sea by yourself. Certainly not having many in-depth conversations. But in the immediate future with the Transat Cafe Lore, you have a partner with you, Will. And so, there will be some socializing, if you want to call it that. You'll be sharing the space for how long do you anticipate this race taking in 9 to 12 days?
Yeah, I think it's a good range. Between, 9 will be really, really fast. I'm not sure we will get there, but yeah, between 10 and 13 days is a good range and, hopefully on the short side of it.
Yeah. So this is kicking off on October 26th, if I'm not mistaken. It's about a 4,300 mile transatlantic race. I was bragging when we started because I went 700 miles, and you're doing about 5 times that, 6 times that. Um, can you sort of run us through what this race is going to be looking like? Like, even as simple as like, what is your average speed per? How will you actually sleep? What will you eat? Will you shower, or will you just rough it? Sort of tell us more about the Transit Cafe lore, and what's going into this.
Well, let's get one thing out of the equation that is shower. We don't really have showers on the boat, so we can use like buckets, especially if the conditions are really light wind and you're, kind of waiting around for the next wind to come. You can really take a quick salt water shower. You fill up a bucket, you put some soap on you, throw the bucket on your head, and pretty much it's done deal. So I mean, that's an easy one. The food, we have a lot of freeze-dried food on board, for a few reasons. One, of course, is the weight. We want to be as performing as possible. You might understand this, you're riding bikes for so many miles, and the worst feeling that you can have is to have a really heavy bike and full of stuff because it makes everything so much harder, so much heavier. Every little hill that you try to climb is just so much more painful.
Yeah.
It's similar with a boat. Of course, the boat is powered by the wind and the sail, so it's not a lot that you can feel physically on the weight on top, but it definitely get the speed of the boat a bit decreased. So we don't want that. And then the other point about having freeze dried on board is that, of course, we're going to be on the water in this case, between 10, 14 days. Uh, I mean, we're going to go also towards really warm weather, and you cannot have fresh food because it's not going to last. It's going to just
Mm,
go. The third point is also the nutrition side of it, because it's really being, made by someone, by a company. You can really have the proper amount of calories, the proper amount of proteins, carbs, and fat in each of these meals. And you can create a more like controlled environment where you know exactly what is coming into your body and what you need every day. So there are, a few factors. And The sleep on board is also quite rough. the boat is the boat is moving a lot. It has like foils, so we're really like jumping from one wave to the other. The boat is moving quite aggressively on the water, and having a proper sleep is quite hard. But at the same time, we need to sleep. There's no human being on this planet that can survive 13 days without any sleep. We have some little bunks inside the boat where we can get nice rest. And then we have like a kind of big chair with a lot of foam that we can sit doing some computer work, checking the weather, and also have a nap. So the life on board is quite easy. I always compare it as a camping on the ocean. We don't have, a lot of fancy things. You really kind of enjoy it too, to live with like, a simple life where you might wear the same t-shirt for a week, and no one gonna tell you to change. Like,
Yeah.
and the food is really simple. We only have a little jet boil that we cook some hot water. We have, some coffee, some tea, and the sleeping is, yeah, in little bunks with a sleeping bag and a small pillow. And that's more or less our day-to-day life.
Yeah. Wow. So, all right, this is a personal question, but is there music or podcasts, or is that sort of a distraction?
I mean, I personally love the quiet. When I'm really trying to focus on something, I want to be able to like hear the boat, hear the different things, and have a feeling for it. But then there are moments where, I mean, to be honest, it's quite boring, Like, you're going straight line, the wind is quite stable, the sails are trimmed, the autopilot is driving the boat. You're more like almost like an airplane pilot with the autopilot on, where you're checking all the systems, but there's not a lot that you can do, right? And in that moment, sometimes, some good music is not a bad thing. I like some like easy, like, I don't know, I like some country music, or yeah, depends a bit of the mood, I would say.
Yeah. Okay, this is my next silly novice stupid question about this race in particular. And I feel like I know the answer, but I still have to ask it. But are you are you drinking, are you consuming alcohol in any capacity? Like, is having a glass is having a
I
glass of
mean,
wine? Yeah, go for
yeah,
it.
not really. I mean, I'm not a big like alcohol consumer ashore neither, so I don't feel really the need to bring it on the boat. Of course, when I'm ashore, am I enjoying a little glass of wine here and there if I have some friends around, or I'm half Italian, so I of course enjoy a little Aperol spritz with some friends. But on the boat, really, I'm not into it. And the only thing that we have is really for superstitious more than anything. We have little rum on board, so when you cross the equator, there is a bit of a ritual that you give some rum to the boat, you give some rum to the ocean, and you drink a little bit of rum, and you're really asking King Neptune to allow you to cross the equator safely. And it's really more like a ritual that most of the sailors do. And the same, when you go around Cape Horn, you can have, a little ritual of, you went out of the Southern Ocean, you're kind of like in the safe space of the world again, and you can have a little sip of rum to thank the ocean, thank you the boat for a safe passage. But more than that, I mean, there is not a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, that tracks. That's also really cool. I would have never guessed that. Um, 'Cause yeah, I had sort of had a wacky little tangent that I was like, I wonder if we should talk about like some weird stuff and be like, have you ever encountered any ghosts out on the ocean? Which I don't think we need to go there, but you kind of alluded to some of the
I mean,
superstition.
real ghost, I'm not sure. But I have a funny story. I was doing a race by myself on a smaller boat, and I was so sleep deprived. It was like 600 miles, almost impossible to sleep. It was like crazy. And I had my jacket hanging inside, like on a little hook. And when I went down below and I saw it, I was like so freaked out. Oh my God, I have another person on the boat. This is illegal. They're going to disqualify me. This is a solo race. You cannot be here. You need to get out of the boat. Like, I need to finish this race by myself. And, in the craziness, I was like, hold on. This is my jacket. So I,
Wow.
it is kind of ghost, but
Yeah, that's
yeah,
amazing. I
that
was
was
going to
a bit
ask
of a
about,
freaky moment.
yeah, geez, I'm sure you're pretty much hallucinating after being that sleep deprived.
Yeah.
Um, all right, so that was 600 miles. I just want to, for a moment here, can you sort of paint a picture of just what the Vendée Globe, some of just the sort of statistics are with that race? It's several years down the road here, but for the average listener, for the novice like myself, can you sort of share about what this race actually entails? And not even necessarily why you're going for it, but sort of what goes into this race.
I mean, it goes a lot, it's a long race. They call it the Everest of the ocean, pretty much. You start from the Sable d'Olonne in France, in the region of the Vendée. That's why it's called the Vendée Globe. It's just the region in France. And you start the race solo, so you're by yourself on the boat. It's unassisted, so no one can really help you or following you with other boats. And it's non-stop, so we never really stop. You have, of course, the option to do some technical stuff, but it has to be unassisted and solo. So I can put an anchor, somewhere and fix whatever I have to fix by myself with everything that I have on board. So I bring with me a lot of spares, a lot of tools to be able to fix almost everything on board. If you are able to fix it, then you can keep going the race. If someone has to jump on board and help you, then the race is over. And you go, you start in France, you try to point south through the Atlantic, you leave Cape of Good Hope in South Africa to left, Cape Lewin in Australia to the left, Cape Horn at the southern point of South America to the left, and then you go back up in the Atlantic. Hopefully, after around 90 days or less. With these fast boats, with these new boats, it's actually less than 90 days most of the time. You're really around 75, 80 days. You get back to Les Sables d'Olonne. It's, yeah, it's a different race. You have to manage yourself in a different way. It's not just 600 miles that, oh man, I didn't eat, I didn't sleep, whatever. I'm going to survive and just get it done. Like, you really need to manage your sleep, manage your energy. So it's a different beast. But at the same time, you know, definitely technology in the last few years are helping us on board to feel a bit less lonely. You can still be, on a satellite connection, being able to talk with your family at home. Sometimes I even FaceTime my daughter and tell her, to listen to the teacher at school. And you're in the middle of the ocean. So there is a lot of also connection that you can still keep.
So correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's around 25,000 miles, correct? Can you just
Yeah.
share?
Is
Oh,
that a straight line? So at the end, it's going to be always more and more because you do a lot of like maneuvers and you need to go around. Like, you end up being way more than that.
what is, I know this varies, but what's sort of like the slowest speed that you would be going at, and then sort of your top speed?
The slowest speed can be, close to zero. Sometimes you end
Yeah.
up going backwards, especially when you cross the equator. There is a, weather zone there that there's no wind, pretty much. It's called the doldrums. Sometimes you're just there with the winds flapping on top of your head, just hoping to get some wind. And then the boat can really get up to like, between 38 and 39 knots. That is 38 miles per hour. So that's like maximum speed. You never really want to get there. You really want to push for the boat to be set up for a pretty high average speed, but never have these like big peaks. It's really stressful on the structure of the boat. It's really stressful on the pieces on the boat. And at the same time, is also like, you might accelerate 40 miles per hour and then you crash in the next wave, and it's a really start and stop feeling, instead of finding a setup that it might get you, an average of 26 miles per hour, 27 miles per hour, that is really fast, but is really consistent, and you're able to like really keep it for a long amount of time.
That makes total sense. And I hadn't even thought about it like that. Of course, you're like hitting massive waves as you go. So finding something that's a little more sustainable and allows you to sort of glide over those waves makes total sense. Thank you for entertaining some of my introductory questions there. And I'll sort of wrap up our first episode by just mentioning that one of the hopes is that, over the next several weeks, months, possibly even years, there can sort of be these periodic check-ins to just see how training is going. Because, like you said, this is the Everest of sailing. It's quite massive. So I know we've got more coming down the horn, but for this episode 1 here, I think we'll wrap up and just say thank you for sharing about the Transit Cafe lore that's coming up on the horizon, as well as telling us a little bit more about what it's like to be on board. So tune in next time, folks. Thanks again. You're listening to the Ocean Hour podcast.